Everybody doing? Great. Good to see all your faces. So excited to see you. Welcome back. Welcome back to you that are in the room and to you that are joining us virtually. And welcome back to Black Gold, our speaker series. If you've been with us, you know that how riveting and real and uplifting and absolutely amazing each week has been. Our speakers have shared themselves and taught us about some of the pioneers and maybe some lesser known, but equal giants of Black Wall Street. It's been a great time. For anybody who's been here, have you guys enjoyed yourself? Yes. Awesome. This is your first time joining us. Our goal with this series is to uplift the stories of Tulsa entrepreneurs, past and present. My name is Tara Payne, and I'm the community coordinator here at 36 Degrees North at our Campton location. And this is Guy Troupe, owner of Black Wall Street Liquid Lounge. He's our guest today. And standing ovation. Stood up for you. He deserves to be stood up for. So this series is a partnership between Greenwood Cultural Center and 36 Degrees North. And at 36 Degrees North, we like to call ourselves Tulsa's base camp for entrepreneurs. And our whole mission, our whole reason for being is to help entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs themselves thrive in our city. And we do this by providing inspiring workspace, a tight-knit community, and resources to get entrepreneurs to the next step in their journey. And we want to also highlight our partner, Greenwood Cultural Center. And Greenwood Cultural Center serves as a marker for the Tulsa community, chronicling where we have been, where we are, and where we are going through historical offerings, events, and youth programming. Its mission is promoting, preserving, and celebrating African American culture and heritage. And you can visit their website at greenwoodculturalcenter.org. So, y'all ready to dive in?
Oh, yeah.
I'm not ready. Okay, great. Okay. Last week, Last week, LaToya Rose inspired us authentically. We went off script, and it was good. I thought it was good. The week before that, Ms. Vanessa Komara, who's in our presence of Komara Marketing, she actually was authentic as well, and it was very refreshing. She spoke to those who may have been apprehensive about joining the entrepreneurial scene and just told us about her story. I really enjoyed my conversation. Our guest today, as I mentioned, Guy Troupe. He paid me to say that. I'm just kidding. Guy Troupe, as I mentioned. So we laid the groundwork for the rest of the series in the first series. Touched on the backstory of how the series came to be. And we talked about how we want to make 36 an inclusive place. We want to make 36 Degrees North look like Tulsa. We want everyone in our city to feel comfortable in our space. It was important for us to make sure that we highlighted the stories of those that are from Tulsa. As we know, because of the centennial, there are many things that are going on and people who have come to our city. But if you're from Tulsa, which I am, we know that Tulsa's great, right?
That's right.
We got great people here. So we are definitely grateful for the people who are coming to our city. We want to make sure that we didn't leave Tulsa out. So, just a second. Last week we talked about the more feminine side of things. The first week we started off with O.W. Gurley, who is considered the founder of Black Wall Street. J.D. Stratford, and we talked about A.C. Jackson. And last week we talked about Mabel B. Little. The week before that we talked about Lula Williams. And just talked about, the many wonderful things that these players have brought to Black Wall Street. And how many of you know that it was already amazing for a Black entrepreneur to do what they did? Let's talk about for a Black woman to be able to own a business at that time. I mean, women couldn't even have checking accounts until the 1960s. I just learned that last week. It's bananas. What in the world? So tonight again, we're gonna listen to Guy. I'm gonna read his bio to you, and he's gonna tell us all about himself. He's got a very impressive bio, and he is an actual descendant of Black Wall Street. So very honored to have you in our presence. Thank you for joining us. Let's see. Guy Troupe graduated from Tulsa's Booker T. Washington High School. I knew that was coming. If you went to Booker T, you always have to leave that silence. Both of my parents went to Booker T, and they always, woo!
Sing the fight song before we're done.
I might join in, since I'm kind of grandpa. And earned undergraduate, graduated from Booker T. Washington High School, earned undergraduate magna cum laude and graduate degrees from Howard University, license, and completed doctoral level coursework at Teachers College, Columbia University. Troupe, a former college football player, is known throughout America as a thought leader in the area of athlete development and transition. He led various career transition initiatives as an employee of the National Collegiate Athletic Association, or the NCAA, the National Football League, and the NFL alumni. He is the CEO of Black Wall Street Enterprises, owner of the NFL Alumni Player Networking event at the Super Bowl, and the founder and CEO of Troupe 21 and Associates, a consulting firm with a niche in collegiate and professional sports, such as the NCAA, NBA, NFL, etc. Troupe, a self-described serial entrepreneur keenly aware of the importance of self-sufficiency, owns and operates multiple businesses across various industries, such as real estate, sports, human capital, management, retail, and wholesale coffee. In 2019, Troupe returned to Tulsa after a 35-year hiatus to Black Wall Street to open Black Wall Street Liquid Lounge as its first business venture in Tulsa. Let's give Guy Troupe a hand. So Guy, I just read your bio. It's very impressive. Again, I'm honored to be sitting there. What you do in your own words about yourself. So you went to the T. Tell us more about you. Tell us about your childhood and what you do and
well, I would start with telling you I'm going to be in the midst of greatness. Tulsa has a phenomenal past and present, and it really is the folk that were born here, the folk that decide to live here. It's a special place. When we collaborate and work together, I was taught very young in life that it's important to compete. So I'm a magnet school child. I went to John Burroughs Elementary, Carver Middle School, and Booker T. And so my K through 12 class has the distinction of being the first class to go through the entire integrated system. So when I was a child, it was 3 little black boys, 3 little white boys, 3 little white girls, 3 little black girls. And there was learning in that experience for me that I applied today. So there was a girl that could beat me running. So I know at some point women are athletic, right? There was a girl that kicked me in my shin a lot, and I didn't want to fight her, right? There was a person, a guy that, may have not looked like me, but I was friends with. So, and there's a true argument around segregation, integration, desegregation, that I feel like I lived, and I have a testimony to discuss. So at the root of who I am is just a Dorothy and Albert Chester's child. I'm the baby child. I had 2 older brothers that they made all the mistakes, right? And I learned from their mistakes. So everything I've done, I really attribute to my mom, dad, brothers, and this city, nurturing me, teaching me, educating me about what it is to be a human being. And so,
it's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So your bio said that you spent a 35-year hiatus away from Tulsa. Where did you live other than Tulsa?
Primarily Kansas City, Dallas, DC, and New York, all for educational reasons or a job. I had a good friend of mine, a classmate, he made this statement. He said, Tulsa, especially African Americans in Tulsa, leave this town. And so I believe some of that's tied to the conditions of race. And what that person said to me is we major in the export business. So all our great talent leaves. And 5 years or so ago, a friend of mine challenged me, said, if you really love Tulsa, if you care about this place, you should do something. So that's how I returned. I always came home a lot, but I returned, well, primarily because my wife forced us to return for our grandbaby. Okay. And secondarily, to do my part. But I worked at the NCAA as an investigator and a compliance officer. I worked for the NFL, really creating programs to help athletes. If you're a sports fan, the Rookie Symposium, all of the behavior-related counseling programs, transition programs. I was really the chief architect on implementing the programs. And in all candor, I never thought I would be an entrepreneur. I was on a track that most people loved, and I found a way to become an entrepreneur inside of sports, and that's where my passion was fueled. And the reason I really became an entrepreneur, though, is that I really hit the glass ceiling in corporate, right? I mean, just to be candid, I chaired the NFL's first diversity committee, and I had to take huge shots at the system, right? And so those that fight that battle in inside organizations, really there's a target on your back, right? So my parents were like, stand up, in your face, civil rights, do the right thing, speak your mind, march. So I got it honest, and the current commissioner, and I don't like to be super disparaging about people without them being able to defend it, but there was lip service given to the diversity initiative when I was there. So we had 56 vice presidents at the time, 1 woman, 2 African Americans, in a league that was dominated by 75% African Americans. So I learned that courageous conversation, life, family, relationships, business are necessary. And that's in my travels. I was fortunate enough to travel. I've seen every state of the U.S. because of the job I had. And that diversity of culture and experience shaped my life and changed.
It's awesome. You said that your parents were in your face.
Stand up for people. So it sounds like you were prepared to be in the midst of adversity. I think my mind.
My fault. Okay, it was my fault too. To be in the midst of adversity and bring about change.
Have you seen your parents do that type of
Let's give it up for Jamie, y'all. But you said a couple of things that I wanted to highlight. You said that you didn't really think of yourself as being an entrepreneur. You found a way to be an entrepreneur, which is that, to me, speaks to the grit of entrepreneurship. Right? So you found a need to build it. Let's talk a little bit about that, because there may be somebody here who's working a corporate job who doesn't know entrepreneurship is the path that they'll take.
So I would start by saying I was with Dr. Charles and Anita Christopher. They were the Huxtables to me, and I got a chance to experience them as a child. I was friends with their youngest child, and that is what the HBCUs, we always were taught. You're going to go to college, you're going to get educated, that will provide a pathway. But they never talked really about the pathway to entrepreneurship. And so anyone that doesn't go to college can still be great. And I was kind of brainwashed to think that was the only track. So the academies are valuable to this country, but in many ways they sold you a bill of goods. You go through to this undergraduate major and you have $80,000 debt when you leave, and you can't pay the debt. And so it's an individual situation of evaluating loans, scholarship, and going to college. So I learned that my track worked for me, but my path was just uniquely mine. You can get anywhere with grit, a passion around an industry or a function, and really understanding there are multiple intelligences. We think the only intelligence is cognitive academic intelligence, right? But can anybody in here get in under a car and fix a car without a manual? Without going to YouTube? No, right? But there's someone that's brilliant that way. There's someone in here that has 2 left feet, and there's someone that can really dance, and that's just an intelligence. So the sooner we teach our youth that we all have brilliance, intelligence, and because we can't pass a standardized test because of our environment doesn't mean we're not intelligent. So I don't know if I really answered the question.
That was perfect. I love that because it is smart. You said that, you know, you were taught that was the only pathway. I think in my mind, there was an understanding that I, you know, would go to college. My mom graduated from Lexington. My dad went to Central State at that time. But so I just was thinking, I guess I'll go to college.
Mm-hmm.
But all along, like within myself, I just was feeling like there was something else. But I thought, I should go this way. Then I got there and didn't succeed. And so then I felt bad because I was like, well, this is what you're supposed to do. What am I supposed to do?
Right.
You know, but got home and then went to Rogers State. And it was a history class where we had an assignment that said, find somebody in your family who has played a part in history. And I was telling my mom, I was like, I'm getting an F on this. I don't know anybody in my family who played a part. And she was just like, oh, you need to go talk to your dad. And I was just like, oh, okay. Why? She was like, just go talk to him. So I was like, Dad, you have this assignment. Mama said I need to come talk to you. And I learned that my dad actually did sit-ins here in the city of Tulsa whenever he was younger. Now, he had to sneak from school to go because his dad didn't want him to go. But I remember him telling me that, yeah, we went in when segregation was going on, and they would tell us they didn't, excuse my language, they didn't serve niggers. And they were like, well, we don't eat them, so give us a menu, you know? But I just thought, I did not know that happened in my family, right? So it's so cool. Speaking of family, you said that you played with Lula Williams' kids.
Mm-hmm.
You have a family member that is a direct descendant of Black Wall Street. Tell us more about your family.
Well, I think I should start with the migration of my family to Oklahoma. So my family came to Oklahoma from Mississippi and Georgia, right? And they settled in Claremore. So anybody that knows anything about Oklahoma, how did a Black family choose to settle in Claremore? So the Troupes have a segregated part of a cemetery, right? And when I was a child, we'd go there for holidays. And it was normal to me. Like, it was just, we're going to see Grandma, Aunt Janie, Aunt Lucille, the whole family there. And to me, that was my life. Now, I left and came back, and I said, this town is stuck, right? We had property on historic Route 66, right, that they settled. So my great-grandparents, Franklin, Alabama, they were farmers, essentially. So I know, I saw all of the wringing of the necks and the cows and the chickens, and I understand all of that. I never had an interest in it. My Aunt Lucille and Uncle Ernest moved to Tulsa in the 40s, and then she really took over from Mabel B. Little. She took Madam C.J. Walker's brand. She was the principal of all her schools, ran the franchise in Omogi, Tulsa, and Skokie, and then over time started Troupe's Beauty School in college. So she had a storefront as well as a college. So like Clary Sage is today, she had that. The address was 112 North Greenwood. And it, you know, so, and my Aunt Lucille was a pistol, right? I mean, you know, women that run beauty shops, right? So she called me Mr. Guy. She thought I was a mature kid, right? And I just, listened to the stories, but I really didn't believe in Black Wall Street because when I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, pool halls, what would you call it? Red light kind of situation, right? Liquor stores and churches, right? And a few candy stores. Yeah. So when they told me about how grand this was, I thought, like, this is a fictional kind of thing. They can't be telling the truth. And since it wasn't taught in school, it took me being in college and someone from New Jersey who was affiliated with the Black Panther Party. Raz Baraka was Amiri Baraka's son. I went to Howard with him. And I was in a forum with him, and he mentioned it, which sparked my interest in the study of Black Wall Street when I was a junior in college.
So your family never told you this?
Yeah, they told me. I didn't believe them. I mean, like, okay, this was grand.
Yeah,
Okay, Black folks had everything. I'm just telling you, what I saw on Greenwood, it was very hard to believe. So the lesson is, if experiential learning is the most important thing. So what I learned is, on Greenwood, people just shake dice and get half pints, and then on Sunday they go to church. I didn't learn one thing about barter, trade, spend together, which was the model of Black Wall Street. It took me 40 years of living to understand it.
It's interesting that you shared that because it all kind of came full circle. We started talking about the hiatus, and then a friend of yours challenged you to do something. Tell me about the vision. So you came back to Tulsa. Did you immediately, you and your wife, start Black Wall Street Liquid Lounge? What's the vision about for the coffee shop?
Well, it started with an addiction. So every one of you has one. You just tell me what yours is. Okay, but my wife and I like liquids, right? So a lot of coffee and a lot of wine. So we were sitting around one day and said, and she works in oncology. She sells cancer drugs, and she wants to transition out of that. So we decided we would try our passion. And so the Liquid Lounge was really a vision of something we were into, right? Growing a brand. So we're going to expand to sort of a wine concept soon. But the idea of the lounge is, hey, we want the community to feel like my Lucille's Beauty Shop. And you can come in there and talk about anything. You can be yourself. We're unapologetically African American. Our music, our culture, our drinks, our wall. We want our people that are 56th Street North to come this way and feel just as comfortable as someone like from Broken Arrow or Wasso or Jeans. So, and so we're just trying to create a culture. The idea is we have an incubator of culture, and then we're trying various concepts. So we partnered with various businesses, pilots. We have a few joint ventures in the making. And we're just trying to help people move the ball down the field in business.
That makes sense because I went in the other day and I noticed when I've gone in that I see people sitting, coming in because I go, and whenever I was raised, we were taught to make sure that you speak to your elders. So I go and I speak to the people that I see. But I didn't realize that you had intentionally wanted it to feel that way.
Yeah.
So that's great because it does. It feels that way.
Yeah, it's like it's your living room. So if you put your feet on the thing, go ahead, right? Now, there's a line, right? But we haven't really had to enforce a line. The only line we really had to enforce, to be honest, is tone. Like it gets loud, right? And with this new medical marijuana stuff, people just come in and they just take liberties, right? So we have to enforce that a little bit. But other than that, I'm excited. I don't know if you're aware, but a guy named Fred Jones has a 1921 Black Wall Street music project, so we're helping him with that. We have a project with the Oklahoma Eagle where we're trying to help them recreate and rebrand themselves. We're helping the Williams Dreamland Theater and the Williams family fundraise to build a theater, looking for a location right now. So we're excited. The wine concept. We're a young lady named Curie. Many of you all know her. She has an interest in sort of a night spot. So in a few weeks, we're going to try wine with her. And so I'm excited. Any of you that have concepts that you think can be piloted in a retail environment, we welcome working.
What's your work with the Wine and Tuesday?
I'm basically helping them fundraise. So we're planning celebrity golf tournament in August, and trying to really make this an annual event. Wayman was a huge figure in this town as an athlete and a musician. So ultimately, our vision is like you have Essence Festival in New Orleans. We want to partner with the Tisdale Foundation to create a music festival in his name.
We, at Camp 2, I have the Wayne and Tisdale channel and I play on Pandora. And I always get the most compliments like, oh, this is good. Like, this is Wayne, y'all. I don't know about Wayne. So your foundation, you talked about that foundation is to be rooted in the community. I want to go back to something that you mentioned earlier. You talked about, and I'm trying to remember what it was, I used to have a pen. But you said so much. Now, in your bio, you talked about being a serial entrepreneur. You told us about the different things that you're involved in, and that is all happening under Black Wall Street Enterprises. So whenever you came back and you said, I want to have, your wife said, well, let's do a coffee shop, why was it important for you to put it where it is?
Oh, so if you look at historic Greenwood District and you look at what has happened to it, not very much of it is owned by people who look like me. So we're renters, right? And I thought it was important to message that Wall Street, they can be successful. And if you're an entrepreneur, you realize you're going to pay a mortgage or a rent anyway. And so we rationalized that Ground Zero was the place to be. And we're hopeful that others will join. And by concept, a central business district for African Americans in this town is necessary. We have great entrepreneurs. You can go 46th Street North, you can go over here to the shops of Peoria, you can go on and on and on. Waffle Bed Wing, Max Wings, Smoothie King. If all of that was together, we would have a business. So I'm hopeful that being on Greenwood and Black Wall Street will message to entrepreneurs that it's possible, and really hope that the other parts of this city accept that it's okay for us to want land back that was taken from us.
So why is it important? I'm glad that you brought that up because I have people, we've heard of the Tulsa Remote program.
I have.
That, you know, they bring many wonderful people here. Tulsa Remote, y'all see all right?
You gotta take the Miami heat out. We got Oklahoma Thunder.
That's hilarious. They bring many wonderful people here, and I've had some of my friends who are in Tulsa Remote, you know, kind of express a disappointment about what you just said, saying, you know, that I thought Black Wall Street was all about women. Like, what's going on? And then, you know, they say that from being outside of Oklahoma and then coming here, that it was a little bit like, this is all we have, you know? So I'm glad that you mentioned that Ground Zero is a place to start. What do you think about, do you think that it will ever be like, I understand wanting to rent first, you gotta start somewhere.
Yeah.
What about owning? Do you think it's possible to own those, or do you, in the historic location, or should it be like move somewhere?
Well, let me just simplify it for you. If I had a home that I own, and you said, I want your home, I have to sell it to you. You can't take my home, right? You can either buy it, right, or burn it down, force me to move. So if you really think about what's happened in this city, we've lost historic Greenwood and Black Wall Street. So the question is how and why, and the solution is deciding a strategy as a people and executing it, whatever that is. I have a strategy in mind, right? But I've learned that you can't always even share a strategy if you have enemies or if you have people that are plotting against your interests. So to move and have success, you've got to understand where the snakes are. You've got to understand You gotta follow the money trail, and then you gotta execute. So I don't believe in playing checkers. I believe in playing chess. So in this kind of public forum, I can give you a strategy. But advisors of mine would tell me that that's not wise in this time, right now, because there are still forces that don't want to see Black Wall Street ever existed. So the candor of that commentary has a consequence, right? There's somebody that just heard it that's going to think negative about me, and they're going to come for me, right? So I have to be willing to stand behind my words, right? And be strategic enough to win, right? And so what I would say to you that the land that was lost is a model of America. Gentrification is happening where you're from, all over. So it's a model. So the sooner we just accept that model, you devalue the hood, and then you take it back. We're not the only place where that happens, right? So we have to learn from that model. City planning is done 20 years out, right? So they already know what's happening in 2040, right? Do we know?
Right.
And so in my mind, the spirit of Black Wall Street can and will be recaptured, will be. The question is, what geographic location will it come back? That's really all it is. It's gonna happen. The energy of these young people, the energy in this city, the publicity that's been gained, the vibration is high. And I'm confident that the melanated people in this audience and the people who don't have melanin in their skin to cut for us and care about this, we will rise again. And sometimes there are collateral damage, right? Somebody might lose in this rise. And the courageous thing that I believe in, what people dying for, if I were to lose in business, that's nothing, because people lost their lives for this country and this place. And really entrepreneurship it's almost a trap. And
That's
so,
what you mean.
yeah, capitalism says dog eat dog. So it is not about community. It's about one person trying to make as much money as possible. So I don't believe in pure capitalism. Right? And so you call me a socialist, call me something else, but I believe that, can Bezos spend all the money he made, right? So how much does it take to really take care of your family and take care of others? So I have a spirit of giving. I believe in service, and I think if you create a capitalistic system, that it will ultimately implode because there's too much greed. And so I just don't think like that. I think you have to share some of what you have, which most business people laugh at, but I'm willing to do that. It's important to me to give and share.
Actually, I feel like I noticed that the wealthiest, like if you look at a lot of wealthy, first of all, everything you said, you just gave us a lot to unpack. That was good stuff. I feel like the more wealthier people are, the more giving they are. I've noticed that the people who really have loot, like they are giving, And, I mean, of course, there are some.
Well, they can afford to, because it's beer money for them. I can spend $10,000 in this beer money, right? So when you see large donations by billionaires, it's a tax and a shell game more than it is a spirit of giving, in my opinion. And I'm not saying there aren't real philanthropists that really care and share, but by model, it's a business decision most often. So I'm shifting the decimals so I don't have to give Uncle Sam any money. So find a pure service giver that doesn't write it off. Now I believe that rich people give. Yeah. So I think poor people give more than rich people, right? So I was raised, I could eat at any of my friends' homes, right? And their mothers and fathers knew when I was hungry, right? And they didn't think twice about giving. And so as a people, that's how we came used to slavery, right? As a people, that's how we built Black Wall Street. O.W. Gurley's motto was simple. I bought the land, you come open up a business, let's get down, right? He wasn't charging rent. He was giving, he gave parcels to people he believed could execute a vision. So that, I think as a community in Tulsa, we have to think like that. And then I think it's going to take private equity money from people who were not born and raised here. Because the wealth gap is so wide that the people that earn their way out of poverty, that have a little money in the bank, they really can't afford to take a huge risk, right? Now, I'm just happy to hold on. I just got my house paid off when I'm 62. Like, no, I'm not talking about me. Yeah. I'm just saying that's how I shouldn't say that. But I will share a story. So this is a great story. My mom, so I went to college, I got a scholarship, and my master's got paid for, and my doctorate was being paid for by the NFL. I don't believe in paying for my own education. I'm smart enough to get a scholarship. So if I'm not paying my own money for a credential, it means very little unless you're technical, a doctor, so, but my mom, I got to discover the Citibank credit card like we all did in college, and I maxed it, right? Taking my girlfriend out on a date, buying this latest fashion. So when I got my first job, I saw that I could not pay. I kept paying it. It was always the same number, $5,000. I paid $22 a month. So I called my mom, and she said, boy, send me the credit card. So I was like, ooh, she got me out of this debt. Well, when I finished my master's, got my first job, she wrote me a note, congratulations. It was still $5,000. So the lesson I learned is don't overextend yourself. Like pay your way, pay your bills off. So I'm not a huge fan of debt. Right? Every home I ever lived in, I paid it off. So I'm gonna just bonus, whatever. And so that's how I got into real estate. It was an accident. I just didn't like that. Paid the first home off. I was moved to another job, rented it. So I've done that in 5 cities. And so by philosophy, I would say the biggest lesson I say to any entrepreneur, if you can't balance your personal checkbook, you probably can't balance any other business. So start with that and your personal credit score and take care of that business, and then get to doing the same thing in the business. For-profit and nonprofits are the same. This is about credits and debits. The tax code is just different. You got to spend all you have on the mission in a nonprofit or a charity. You do whatever you want with your for-profit.
So those are basics. That's good that you brought that out, Mom. If you can't do your personal finances, then business is probably going to be a challenge too. I remember in my 7th grade, our teacher taught us how to balance a checkbook.
Yeah.
So it was just cool that they taught that. I'm sure they teach that now in school. I'm not sure.
Don't be sure.
They don't?
Yeah, don't be sure. Let's not get on TPS right now.
Yeah, no,
someone really would come for me.
So yeah, let's talk about, you talked earlier about, the math. Well, we didn't really talk about the math, but we talked about losing capital on Black Wall Street. I want to talk about in human capital as well as, financial capital. I want to talk about the implications. What do you feel the implications are for the next?
Well, I think the psychosocial impact of it is key to changing a culture. We have to change how we think, right? How do we think about the massacre? So I think about, and I'll just give my own philosophy. I think if somebody burned me down, that I would never let that happen again. So I would always be on guard for that, right? So in my personal life, I've never had anything burned down. I've never had anyone pillage my home. So I'm not fearful of that, but I know it happened, right? So the psychology I take to engagement with human beings is that until you show me that you're not for me, then I believe that you are. And that's a risk, though. So I went to school with I have white friends, right? I have people that don't think like my friends. And it's just rooted in how they think. And how you think is how you move. So the psychosocial, as a man thinketh, is a book I love, spiritually based book. So I just try to rock with how I think. And when you're in a room with people, if you have any discernment, then you know who's for you, right? And you know who's neutral, and you know who's against you.
I think it's important. You mentioned that you have friends that don't think like you. I think it's important to know who's for you, who's not, and still be able to. I think sometimes people look at me and they're like, "Well, how can you even talk to this person?" Because I don't have to be surrounded by people who agree with me. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Right? It's important to be able to talk to all different kind of people who don't agree with you,
Right.
people who, so I'm glad that you brought that up because you don't know where a partnership might form or where you might need to glean something from somebody for something that you're going to do later on. So I'm glad you brought that up. You talked about the psychosocial impact. What about the human spiritual impact?
Yeah, so I've encountered situations that I know are inhumane, right? And we probably all have all seen it. We know our jail system, our prison system. I mean, it's an inhumane concept, right? And there is evil in many institutions. So if you look at the main institutions in this world, in the U.S., politics, education, economics, uh, family, right? Religion. There's evil across every one of those institutions. There are people in there that are not operating with a true, great human spirit. There's a lot of abuse in churches, right? In the Catholic Church. I'm not trying to call anyone out, but yeah. So I'm saying that when evil shows up, right, in our pathway, we as individuals have to purge it. We got to fight against it. So I have a belief system of how I do that. I pray, right? And I seek guidance from people that know something that I don't know, and then I move. So the real impact of the massacre is 100 years later, right? There's still spirits roaming, haven't been uncovered. So that's what the mass grave is about. We don't even have closure for some families, and that's a generational thing. And if this whole city isn't humane in trying to heal the wounds of the victims, and I hate to be a victim of anything, but this was a big victim at its finest. And so I would say prayer and community is mandatory to get us to the next level. And all of our spirits are combined. I mean, there's a spirit here right now that's going to change someone, right? Because it happened today. And there's a spirit, and some of us will go backwards and some of us will go forward today. Yeah.
So what you're talking about, it is, I mean, it's traumatic. The massacre was traumatic. So how then, I'm thinking in my mind of the picture of ashes, we talked about everything burning down. How then can we take that trauma and triumph at this point? How can we take what we've been through? It is, as you mentioned, 100 years later.
Right.
How can we triumph? You talked earlier about finding a need in a place that you didn't think that you would be, and that was your entry way to entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
You think entrepreneurship is the catalyst to finding that triumph?
Well, not really. I mean, money is important. Making money is a need, but
I'm not necessarily talking about making money.
Yeah.
Because I am. We all want to make money, but doing what you did, like finding a need and filling it.
Yeah. So I would say, and you and I talked about this offline, and everyone needs a counselor, right? And they come in different forms. You know, a certified counselor, a psychologist, a good friend that listens and will push you.
Bring you one.
Yeah, there you go. Wine as a therapist, yeah, no doubt. So I think the first step for all of us is dialogue and a willingness to allow people to create structure and guardrails for our weaknesses. We all have sinful ways, we all have weaknesses, we all have things that work in business or in family. So I think as a community of African Americans, the one thing we have to fix is that I don't have to like you to do business with you. I have to know that you can do what I need done in the business. Okay, so I need to take personalities out of business. That's very important. But that's very hard for us to do, right? So I would say the first therapy session is African Americans. We all need. So how can I do business with someone I really don't like?
If we think about the good of the community, that means I have a part to play, you have a part to play. They might be, you know, opposing you, but as long as we have a good community at heart, then like you said, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I learned that through team sports. So I started playing football at 6 years old, 7 years old, and the first day of practice is somebody that we don't like each other on teams, right? It's just, I'm going to show you I'm the best. And then, you know, a year later, 2 years later, that's your best friend. And you trust that person. And you trust them because you went through the gauntlet with them and you competed. And the best man or woman won. And when you lose and give your best effort, that's okay. So I think, you know, I've been in locker rooms with Muslims and Christians and atheists, thugs and gangsters and country boys and city boys. And for the business of football, in this case, winning a game, we all just decide, okay, let's go beat McLean. Yeah. Let's go beat Jinx and Wassel and Broken Arrow. Barnesville? That's where you went? That is funny, right?
I'll see y'all. It's not funny, it's great. Especially funny because both my parents are Hornets, and I was like, why are we doing the Hornets?
We guys had a great player we played against, Mitch Nance. He was
Yeah.
top chef. He went to Oklahoma State.
We graduated one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you got no money. So that's what we do. So what can all people take from, what lesson can all people learn from Black history?
I think the bar trade span system that they had is the most important thing as people. If I make $1, I should spend it with you. If I don't have $1 to spend with you, maybe you just provide me with access because it'll come back to you. So the barter trade system is important. They say that the dollar stayed on Black Wall Street 19 months, partly because of segregation, right? It really couldn't go too far. Now, the research probably says that the dollar doesn't stay in our community more than an hour. Yeah, I mean, it's so you have to be intentional about keeping your dollar in your community. You have to pick up the trash in your community. You have to protect the children in your community. You have to be kind in your community. You gotta do the necessary things that stop the trauma in your community. So gang violence is a problem in the cities all over the country, right? If we don't stop gang violence in this town, then our children will go to school fearful. They won't be able to learn, and they'll join cliques, right? That will more than likely put them in the industrial pipeline.
So you kind of were in my notes that I had earlier. You said something system, barter
Trade scheme.
Barter trade scheme system. So one of the questions that I had was, how can we, as entrepreneurs of all colors, do our part in leveling the playing field or making sure that Black entrepreneurs or all entrepreneurs are able to have success? And you already answered that question as far as, because there's people in this room that don't look like us, right?
Right.
People online that don't look like us, and they probably want to know, okay, how can I help? How can I help? So to me, I feel like what you're saying is whenever you go to make a purchase, think, okay, is there a Black vendor or a Black business or an Asian business or, Hispanic business that I can use, to help bring money to that community?
But it's important that a business provides a quality product or service. So, I mean, I would not advise someone just to spend, barter, and trade with something that's subpar or average. So, as a business owner, irrespective of your race, gender, ethnicity, etc., you have to produce a product that people want, desire, etc. So that's the basis of success in business. You have to have something that people want. When you have that, right, it's really about marketing. Now, I'm a very poor marketer. I don't have any social. I don't do anything on social media. I suck at it, right? But I realize it's a weakness. So somebody in my organization, on my team, has to be really good at it. So I would say serving a high quality product is first. Understanding your business, simplifying it from a financial standpoint. A lot of times we write business plans and we got all these thoughts, and then it's too complex. Simplify it. Something's coming in, something's going out. When you get to that basic understanding, you have a shot to duplicate profit. But if I have 20 products and I say I can do 100 things, so the way I started my business, the way I left the NFL, I would go around the country on their dime, and then people would say, "Well, you come speak to my high school football team." And I would just volunteer and go do it. And then people said, "Man, you're good at this." And so finally, while I was working for the NFL, I got someone to pay me once, right? I went to some town, I don't remember who the first one was. So they paid me $1,500 to speak for 20 minutes. And I said, wow, if I could just do that a lot, I got a business. So I did that one thing for about a year at the same time while I was chairing this diversity committee and arguing with Roger Goodell every day. And then the day that it happened, that I was so mad that he didn't support an initiative, I said, I can leave because I know I can make it out here. I've already proven. So I just had to make 1,500 turn into 2,500, turn into 3,000, turn into 5,000, whatever. And that was the business model that sprung me into entrepreneurship.
That's very encouraging that you say that, because you spoke to something that I believe maybe a lot of entrepreneurs do. They try to do, I can do this. When you first start, you think, I can braid hair, and I'll cook, and then I'm gonna go over here and I'll cut hair. And then I met someone who was just like, no. You just need to do one thing.
Right.
You need to do one thing well. And that sounds like what you did. You said, I can do this. Well, let me just do this, and let me just replicate it and duplicate it, and then I'll make money from that.
Right.
So that's very encouraging for an entrepreneur to know that you don't have to do 8,000 things. Like if you get one thing and do that well, then obviously you can make $1,500 for 20 minutes.
There you go.
Yeah, I need to see how I can make that.
I just said, if you're a smart business person, you say that I did this for free, and then I ran it off on my taxes. I was supposed to get $1,500.
There's a game right there. I hope y'all taking notes. Okay, so I'm gonna ask you a fun question. Let's see. Coffee or what's the name of the golden latte?
Golden latte. Yeah.
That's my favorite.
Right.
Coffee or golden latte?
My preference, I like black coffee with cayenne pepper. That's my go-to.
Why the cayenne pepper?
Because it basically moves me quick. I'm drinking coffee to get energy, right? So it does everything.
I'm glad
needs
you
to
clarified that.
do.
I was not getting that part.
That's why I drink coffee. I don't know why I drink coffee for energy, so I'm addicted to the energy, right? So I like all the little cute drinks, but they're not. I drink them 10% of the time. I'm black coffee kind of.
So coffee, black coffee, or red wine?
What time of the day is it? If I say red wine in the morning, you guys are gonna judge me.
It's up to you. With this,
Right.
no,
No, it's- I would say right around noon I can do both.
Yeah.
Black coffee, yeah. Have black coffee, have a little snack, and have a little wine.
Which red wine?
My wife has me stuck on Pinot Noirs now, so I just do what she does. I can drink Wild Irish Rose and feel good, right? Right, Max? Right, Crystal?
Don't say it right back.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
No, but I've created. I went to a wine tasting once, and the sommelier said, "Hey, don't get caught up on the price point. Don't get caught up on the marketing. When it hits your mouth, if you like it, buy it, right?" And so that's what I've learned about wine. I try to trick my wine and I always buy a $9 bottle of wine, and she always buys a $30 bottle of wine. So I try to trick her and switch them up and ask her which one's best. And really, she's consistent. She likes $30 bottle of wine.
So I want to thank you for having this conversation today. And let's open it up. Let's take some questions. We are going to take some questions. First, let's give Guy a round of applause. Have any questions for Mr. Guy Troupe?
Thank you for everything that you spoke today and everything that we learned. It was just wonderful. I do have a question as far as what advice would you give to a person that just feels stuck? You know there's more out there and there's something that you should be doing, but just feel stuck.
My advice would be to declutter your life. So that it starts with your mind, right? You just gotta free your mind up. So clean out the house, throw away all of the papers in your office. You just gotta simplify. So I think decluttering your mind. Some people use meditation, yoga. Some people exercise. You have to do something to relax your mind. If you're not relaxed in the mind and sleeping at night, your creativity is going to be stressed. And so I do a lot, but I know when I'm average is when I don't rest and clear my mind. So exercise is very important. Water is very important, right? And those two simple things, right, you take for granted. You can walk 20 or 30 minutes and drink the proper amount of water, and you'd be surprised what happens.
Thank you.
I have a question. Okay, before you get your questions, because I just want to acknowledge Ms. Michelle Brown Burdick of the Greenwood Cultural Center is here with us tonight. Crystal had a question too.
Okay, sorry. I'm cutting anybody off. What advice would you give to someone who is teetering that line between entrepreneurship and being primarily employed, right? Like you were with the NFL, and you had enough and decided to go do your own thing. At what point, I don't know, at what point do you what would you say to someone who's like on the board, like, oh, I got this idea, I really want to do it, but this pays my bills right here, so taking that plunge.
That's a great question. So I have a loud voice. I can answer. I don't know if broadcast.
So I would say having a job is critical to becoming a great entrepreneur. So you use your job as a training ground to become an entrepreneur. So still every piece of information that your job is providing, whatever you do, And once you've taken all of the information from that job, you're free to go. So if you need to write, if you need to learn how to write better, don't leave that job till you can really write. If you need to learn budgets, like stay there so they train you up. So once your skill set is complete for the thing, the passion you want to pursue, I say it's time to go. So that's the beauty of employment. It's a training ground. Just school does not do what employment does, right? So you need that to gain a skill set and feel confident. Now, the simple answer is, can you afford to leave, right? And any of us can afford to leave if we just balance our wants and our needs. We all have to spend on BS, right? Everybody has a bucket of money, they're just throwing it out the door. 22 apps on your phone, cable, your device, your car, depreciating asset, right? So that's what I would say. Look at your personal budget and then tighten it so you can leave.
And until then, in the words of my cousin Montana, both of them.
Both of them. She said both of them.
Crystal.
I just want to shout it out.
No, we're gonna bring you on.
Crystal, you might be my plant. Is this a good question for me?
We gonna see.
Uh-oh.
Okay. First of all, Guy is a great person. He really, everything that he said about being of service and helping people, he really does live by that. And also, I think we should just pause because you just spoke a word about what are the things about decluttering your life, getting enough rest, drinking water, and exercise. Oh, Lord. Okay, anyway, you spoke a word to somebody in here. But I want to go back to what you said about how culturally Black people, because I've noticed this in people I talk to, my friends and stuff, our parents never encouraged us to start a business, right? Like even my daddy, he was like, get a job with the government, get your pension, you know what I mean? Retire and you're gonna be set. It was more about stability. And I don't fault them for that. I really used to like be upset because I'm at the age I am now and I'm just now starting my own business. And I felt like my parents didn't encourage that creativity, but it wasn't because they didn't see that in me, but because of their own experiences. They were more worried about, and what they witnessed, especially growing up here in Tulsa, they were more concerned about us being stable and having a job because they knew, I mean, just from what they've seen, I can't imagine what our grandparents saw too, and just the pathway to entrepreneurship as a Black person in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s, the obstacles that would come up. And so what would you say, okay, and also too, how do we teach the younger generation? How do we break free of that? Because we've been conditioned, right, to believe that. And so we had to break and deprogram ourselves, to step out of that. So what is just some practical things that we can do for the younger generation, our kids who are way more savvy, I believe, than we were, and who are more progressive and like they notice technology, blah, 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 blah. What can we do in that generation, that middle generation that you're talking about, to just deprogram ourselves from that mindset of having to work for somebody, and rather I can work for myself and take my gifts and talents and create something beautiful, because that's what I was sent here to do.
Yes, so I would say the first part of that is complicated because the answer I gave you about educating yourself, developing a skill, and getting a job and owning that skill, I would never back away from that. So if I'm 22 and I don't want to go to college and I don't want to have a job, right? If I'm a 42-year-old or 52-year-old, I have to force you into developing a skill. So when you develop the skill, we can get to becoming an entrepreneur. But I don't think you can just go out there and make it as an entrepreneur. I think it's a needle in the haystack approach. So the hardest thing to break, I was on a panel once with a great basketball coach, Carolyn Peck, and she won the NCAA national championship. This is in the 90s, I believe. And she said a quote that stuck with me. She said, when faced with the fork in the road between security and opportunity, always choose opportunity. And so if you have a secure job you're making your way, but you see a path where you can change your children's life, take the road. Don't play it so safe all the time. This life is short. Take some risks. If you blow, if your first business, most first businesses are failures, right? And business is this. It's really not this, right? In the midst of the pandemic, a year ago, now guess what? Everybody's excited about being out here. So the last two weekends we've had here in September, we did the best we've ever done in the coffee shop. So for me, if we could just replicate that, I know that this coffee shop is going to take off. But we had some of this, right? So how do we sustain ourselves in that downtime? Is the most important thing. And if you've been poor, well, what's the problem? You know how to be poor. Yeah.
Thank you for your time this evening. You talked about opportunities, right? And a lot of times there are things that look like opportunities that may not actually be opportunities. How do you go about personally looking for and deciphering what things align with the purpose that you set forth for your life versus people just bringing things to you that might not match with what you actually want to achieve within your purpose?
So the simple answer is I make whatever opportunity is before me, I make someone write it down so I can read it, right? And so that just speaks to contracts and promises. So everything on our phone says, I can surveil you, I can take all your information, I can sell your information, and we download those apps every day. And we don't think twice, we're not reading the fine print. The cigarettes you buy say, it will kill you. And we buy them anyway. So in business, what I try to do first is whatever idea there is, I talk a lot with people to understand if they understand it, to understand if I understand it, right? To seek information about the opportunity. But at the end of the day, business is done with contracts and agreements, right? And letters of intent. And then the next side of it is the numbers. Simplify the numbers. And if someone tells you, hey man, if you give me $10,000, we're gonna make 50 in 6 weeks, just get a spreadsheet. And then you look at the spreadsheet and you say, have you done that one time to prove to me we can do it 50 times?
Can I add something to that? I want to say the first contract that you need is with yourself, right? You need a vision. So you know where you want to go. If some opportunity comes to you and it doesn't align with where you want to go, it's a no. It's a no. And if you don't know, if it looks like it might be, I don't know if you seek a higher power, you might need to look at the spreadsheet. You might need to pray about it. You might need to say, okay, I have a coach, an empowerment coach, and she says, in order to know what to say yes or no to, you have to know what you're up to. That's your vision. What is your vision? If you don't have a vision, then you will be tempted to go to left, to the right, to up, to down. And sometimes you can't know unless you go. But if you have a vision, I feel like that would make it simpler for you to even know if you want to look at the spreadsheet and see what opportunity they have.
So I like that you said that, Tara. My contract with myself are my core values. So I wrote them down 10 years ago, and I've only changed it one time. So faith, intimacy, family, peace, authenticity, respect, and service are my core values. So I'm not gonna do a deal that doesn't hit one of those core values, right? And I'm safe because I try to live that every day. I'm not telling you I'm perfect. My wife, most of my friends would tell you, peace is a core value of yours. like that doesn't show up in the way I engage. But I believe engagement gets you to peace. Understanding gets you to peace. So I would say contract with yourself is write down a few core values. And then you test your core values by your core circle. And you say, do I really live this? If there's a spouse value, then there's living value. So most people write them down on them, right? You say you're about family. You hadn't really talked to your son. Talk to him. Or you say you love your your wife, you in the bar looking at the little cute girl on the side, right? And I look at cute girl, I just like doing it. This is on camera too.
We'll take one more question.
I have a testimony. She's watching. Hey, honey.
Guy, you had mentioned that if an entrepreneur will not be successful in their business if they cannot balance a personal checkbook. Then you gave an example about you were in college and had $5,000 on that credit card. I want you to, and you said you sent it to your mother, but I don't know if that is not the full explanation of how you learned how to be financially responsible so that you could be successful in your personal finances as well as business. And then what makes you think that I'm going to be drinking Wild Irish Rose with you? This is not 2002, man. So,
we have throwback parties where I come from. We try to recreate things that we once did. So, so the methodology that I followed was reduce your interest in the material world. So all things material, I figured out that they don't have value. I bought a new car, man, when I was my first job. And it was an Acura, and I loved the new car smell. And I had a $352 payment I had to make for 5 years. And I said, this car, it doesn't have that value. So we're all in a material world. If you like Jordans or nice jeans or hats or cars or, even a big home, like all of that's material. We can't take it with us. So I learned at the core that human engagement and experiences is what I would pay for more than any material thing. So I'll take a trip to go see someone or to go see something in the world. But I won't buy a thing that's dead and has no value. I work in an industry, sports, where they dangle shiny things at athletes all the time. You come to my school, I show you 22 uniforms and I make you feel good and I show you the Nikes and you come and the coach is a jerk and he doesn't love kids. He loves his money or her money. So I learned that if you just engage with people and that's at the basis of your financial strategy, that you have a shot. Now, we all have to transact the basic necessities, right? So it's budgeting. So my mom taught me to budget when I was a young guy. I just didn't follow the teachings. That's how I got that credit card. So I harkened back to what she taught me and I tightened my belt and paid that car off. And then I could pay that credit card off first. And I said I would never do it again, right? And that was the formulas. I was fortunate that I worked for someone that they gave me a black card for I could spend a lot of money on the NFL and the NCAA when I traveled. So I was able to purge sort of that appetite because I could entertain people. And over time, I got it out of my personal life. I still grab the check from time to time for friends, but it's for the experience, not the material.
So you established a discipline. That's good.
Thanks for simplifying that. I'm long.
You could just ask me. I was saying, we established discipline.
We should have a show together.
What should we do? It would be called?
Martinsville and Booker T. Entrepreneur side.
It's funny. Now let's give God another hand. Give yourself a hand. You know that this is the, I was gonna say the season finale. I've been watching too much Handmaid's Tale. The series finale. This is the finale.
Wow.
It's been a great series. It's been a great series. So we want to thank everybody who came. We want to thank the Greenwood Cultural Center for this partnership. This is amazing, and hopefully we'll get to continue to do this. I also want to thank, if you've been coming every week and you've seen that I've had a t-shirt on from a local Black entrepreneur. Tonight is no different. You see my shirt? It says, I am Black Wall Street. And this was made by Miss Kathy Jordan, who's not originally from Tulsa. She's from Tampa, but she lives here in Tulsa, and she's such a sweetheart. She's been here every week. This week she had to go to Florida. She made me this shirt. She also made me a plaque, and she made me like a notebook that all say I am Black Wall Street, and she does things like that all the time. So if you are interested in this shirt, I can definitely connect you. Another thing we've been doing each week, and we should have had some coffee, is have treats from local Black entrepreneurs. And so we've got, I'm kind of nervous about it, I hope that's all right, but some Frios gourmet pops there for everybody to partake. I told my daughter if she came that she can have a popsicle, so she is not gonna let me forget. But grab those. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I wanna thank the whole team here at 36 Degrees North. If you are not a member at 36 Degrees North and you wanted more information, please don't hesitate to stop one of our staff members. We've got Jamie, we've got Mark. Mark, can you raise your hand? We've got Abby, that's also Abby. We've got Kobe back there, Sarah's back there. SK, my girl on the ones and twos. Rachel's right here. Raise your hand, Rachel. We got an amazing team here at 36. Can y'all give our team a hand for me, please? I really appreciate that team. More than you know. Well, that's it. That's a wrap. You can. Our contract, I'm sure.
So Crystal and Baxter are people that I know well, and Michelle from the culture I know. So I want to say two things. Both of those, Crystal and Baxter, are in this community, and they love this community. And so he has a racism stinks brand, right? And Crystal has jewelry. And we all know what the cultural center is and represents. But I want to, and this is dangerous on the streaming platform, but I'm going to give you my phone number. Everyone in here, you have a drink on me at the Black Wall Street Liquor Lounge. You just have to do one thing. You have to text me, and I'm going to give you my number right now, and I'm going to deliver that promise, okay? So only doing it one time, 214-749-7833. 214-749-7833. And that's dangerous, giving your phone number to everyone, but it's a service that I'm doing. They got to text me and say, I want my coffee.
You should have gave me the wife's number.
Thank you so much. I'm glad that you said something. I apologize. I usually do give our speakers one word. So
Thank you for having me. Enjoy it.
I'm gonna have a show. Y'all watching.
Yes.
Have a good night, everybody. Thank you so much.